Hey you guys, Mary from SVG Cuts here, and I'm super excited about our brand new collection of Iris Fold cards. And the cool thing about them is that I've included little hidden shapes on each piece and little numbers so that it makes it pretty easy to figure out what pieces go where. So I think even if someone gave you like $100 and said you have to figure out how this works without Mary's video, you could totally do it. I think even maybe even your husbands and your boyfriends and friends could even do it. So I'm pretty proud of how easy they are to figure out, but I'm also still going to show you how each one goes together. So I've got all my pieces cut out here, and speaking of pieces, I'm loving this paper by My Mind's Eye. It's called Miss Caroline, and I've had it in my stash for a little while now. And this was like the perfect opportunity to take it out and use it because it's like a really big collection. It's actually made up of 4 mini collections, which they individually coordinate, but they all coordinate too. So it's really fun to play with, and the embellishments are really cute, all the buttons and the pins and everything. So I loved that, but like I always say, you could use any paper that you want, and if it coordinates, even better, because it takes all the guesswork out of which pieces of paper to use together. So that's it. I've got all my pieces cut out. Let's sit down and get started. Okay, so first we're going to do the flower-shaped iris fold card. And here's my finished one. And I've got this frame piece which goes right on the top and finishes it off. So we're going to save that until the end. So set those aside. And we're just going to do the iris part. We're not going to do the whole entire card. So I've got my background piece here, which is the flower shape, and it's got 5 holes on each petal part, and then I've got my pieces here. So what we're going to do is, I think it's easier if you group them together first so that you can see what you've got. And I've gone ahead and I've folded over and glued down the tab on every single piece here. And at this point it's a nice effect if you want to take a little ink pad and rub it on your piece. It just adds a little bit more dimension. I did that on all of my cards, but I haven't inked all these pieces, but that's fine. So first, let's take our weird little hooky piece here with this hook thing that comes off of it, and just kind of position it on one of them, lining up this little tiny hole with the little tiny hole here. So I'm not gluing it down yet because this is the one little trick. When you put your first piece down, you don't want to glue the whole entire thing down, because when you make your way around, we need this to be loose so that we can glue underneath it. So for the first piece, just put a little bit of glue in the middle and choose any hole to line it up with. It doesn't matter which one, they're all the same, and just glue that guy down. Now the only other thing that really matters is that you go in the same order. So I've got my flowers first. Now next I'm going to do my yellow piece, and I can go ahead and glue this whole entire thing down. And I want to go in the same direction. I want to go counterclockwise, and I want to keep going counterclockwise. And next I'm going to do an orange piece. And it doesn't matter which order you go in as long as you keep going in the same order as far as colors and patterns go. So I'm just lining up the little hole up here, and I'm going to line up the side down here and press it down. Now next I'm going to do my blue piece, and I'm going to glue the whole entire thing down, and just do the same thing until I get to the 5th and final color here. I can put glue on the whole thing and put it in place on the hole, but I want it to go, oops, getting glue everywhere. I want it to go underneath the first piece. It looks like I accidentally put a little too much glue on that first piece, but that's okay. Okay, so glue that down, and then add a little glue to this first one here, which you'll probably do a little neater than I'm doing here, but okay, so there's your first layer. And now you're just going to do the same exact thing with the next biggest piece, this long piece here. And you want to make sure that this pattern with the hole is the same pattern with this hole. So like I did before, let's just put a little glue on this piece, leaving the top part open because we're going to want to slide something under it at the end. So go ahead and do the same thing all the way around, and when you get to the end, just put your piece underneath here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this next layer here too with you. So I am just doing the same thing I did before, just line up the same pattern hole with the other patterned hole underneath and just put it down. And like I said, my first piece is still up, but all the other ones are going to get glued all the way down. So for me, orange is next, and I can go ahead and put that in place. And next I'm going to have my blue piece and put that in place. And you can see the center of it is starting to take shape and it's looking pretty cool. So next I've got my yellow patterned piece. And just put that in place. And this outside part is looking kind of weird, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be covered up by other pieces. Oops. And I was talking, so I forgot to stick this underneath. And I pulled off a little paper right there, but it's pretty boldly patterned, so I don't think anyone's going to notice. And just put that down. So now take your next biggest piece, which is this one. There's only 2 of each left, and obviously this one's bigger. So go ahead and do the same thing again all the way around. Being careful to leave the top part of this one. Leave that part loose. And as you can see, this next piece here has 2 holes in it because it overlaps on 2 holes on the base part. So it's really easy to see where it goes. Just line up the holes and press it down and just work your way all the way around like you did before. So next I've got my blue piece. And finally my yellow piece, which I want to slide underneath the first piece because this is the last piece on this layer. So go ahead and push that down. Now if I had inked all the edges of these pieces, it would have given it a nicer effect. So feel free to do that. You can either use brown, or I like to use these sometimes too, which I got at Michael's, because I can match colors, which can be fun. So finally, just take these pieces, which don't even overlap, and just glue them all down to the colors that they go to, which finishes off your bottom piece. And then you're just going to take your frame and you're going to just glue that on. So I glued my final pieces down, and now I'm going to flip both of these over, and I'm going to put a nice thick line of glue around the edge on the back side here of my frame. And I'm going to just push my piece down. I want to center it in the center as best I can. And then I'm just going to hold it here and let it get a good hold. And now this part is just going to go right on top of your card base, which is it's just a big rectangle. So you could put it on your card, or you could put it on a gift bag or something. But when you do, you're going to put glue all over the back here, and then if you have pop dots to put here, that's going to even out the sticky layer. So you can flip it over and see how cool it looks. Now before you did that, if you wanted to ink around the inside of your frame, that gives it a nice touch because it kind of like closes it off in there. So that's that one. Now let's move on to the next one. So next let's do our tall flower card, which I've done up as a sympathy card, but obviously you could leave off this caption and make it more cheerful looking and give it a whole different look for like a birthday or thank you or really anything. But just, I could take a minute here to talk about sympathy cards, and a good way to pick out papers is to avoid, obviously, anything too cheerful. Definitely no polka dots or stripes or anything real like crazy or colorful, which can be kind of hard to pick, like subdued, muted colors, but I think I did a good job picking them out for this. So let's look at the way that the iris fold works on this one. Again, we've got our frame, which we'll set aside till the end, and then we've got our 3 different pattern papers, which I have all flipped over so you can see the back side of them. Now on the back side of your pieces, I've drawn my number in here, but it's only because you can't really see on video very well the number that's cut onto each of them. So your machine will have cut just like this, a 1, a number 2, number 3, number 4 on each of these pieces, just to help you tell which one goes where, even though you can clearly see that they go from largest to smallest. So let's start with the largest ones and just pick any of your patterns, and we're going to go ahead and do what we did before where we leave the top part flappy and open. So this one has 2 holes, and we're going to line up this top hole with any one of the other holes on the bottom piece. So I've got my top hole here, and I'm going to line it up with this hole, and then I'm going to line up this hole and that hole. So again, this is open, so we can slide something underneath it. Now let's take our next piece, and we can glue the whole thing down, and we're going to go counterclockwise and line up this hole and line up the other hole and glue it down. We'll take our next piece here and glue the whole thing down, being sure to slide it underneath the first piece and line up the holes. So I've got the 2 holes lined up, but it's also underneath the first piece, which we'll glue down. So now you can go ahead and do the same thing all the way around, going in the same order. So I've got this piece with this hole here. I'm going to, you want it to be, like, let's say I put it directly on top of this one, you want to go counterclockwise and line up its hole with this hole here. And then do the same thing all the way around. And line this one up here. And then you just want to make sure again to slide it underneath the first piece. So you're starting to see your iris shape take place. And again, you could have inked the edges of these pieces to add some more dimension. So go ahead and do the same thing, working your way around with these pieces, leaving this one loose so you can glue underneath it, and just work your way all the way around, doing the same thing. And then you can finish it off with these final pieces which don't overlap. And I got one hiding under here. I'll just put that there. So our piece is taking shape. I didn't glue it down just so you can get an idea. And then you'll just take your frame and just glue it like this to hide all the edges. But of course, that's going to work better if you flip it over, flip this over, put glue around here, and then push it down. So next, let's take a look at our baby card, which is technically not a iris fold card, but it's kind of got the same type of thing going here. So we've got our frame piece, which is going to go on, well, at the end, which will be very soon. And we've got this little awning piece, which gets folded just like this. I was kind of rough with mine, I tore it up a little bit, but you can be more careful. So you're just going to put glue on this tiny little thing here and hold that while it dries and work your way around like this. And then on the back, you'll also need to put some glue inside these little crevices to glue it like this. So once you have glue in all of your little creases here and you've held it down so that it's flat, you're just going to glue it behind its little shape here where it's pretty obvious where it goes. So just put glue around the back side and glue your little shape right in there. So this bottom piece is pretty much the same thing. You've got some little crevices here where you're going to just put glue and hold it while it dries, and it it bends 3 times like this, and just glue it each time and hold it while it dries, and then just flip it over and put glue in each of these folds too, and just hold it until it's glued completely flat, and then you can go ahead and put it behind its place where it goes. So obviously just put some glue around the inside, put it down and hold it flat. So when those 2 pieces show through the openings, it looks super cute, and then you just add your little handle here and your wheels, and then use some pop dots to put this whole thing onto a card or a gift bag or whatever. Okay, so now let's take a look at our heart iris fold, which is a little bit different because the pieces are all a little different going around because it's not like a circle or a square. So I've got my pieces laid out here with the numbers are on the back, which helped me put them in order, and I grouped them by pattern. So you can tell which pieces start where because on your heart bottom, on your background, there are 3 little cutouts to help guide you. And the bottom one is a triangle, this one's a square, and this one's like a teardrop shape. So we are going to start, these are all my number 1 pieces here. So I've got 1, 1, 1, and then 2, 2, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. So I've got these pieces here. They all have big triangles on them except for the 5th one, which has a square. I'm going to start with that one, and I'm going to put some glue all over the back of it, and I'm going to line it up with its square on the square on my background piece. And then next I'm going to take my next number 5 here, which also has a square on it. And since the heart is kind of a strange shape, it's a little more confusing, I think, than our last iris fold, but it's not bad. So just line up your rectangle here, your square with the other squares, and make sure that you can still slide something underneath this first piece like we've done before, and then get your final number 5 piece, and it has a triangle on the bottom of it, and let's just put glue on the whole thing and just put that in place, lining up the triangles down here. So you just want to make sure that this piece is going underneath the first one and over the last one. So now let's move on to number 4 of this pattern, and I'm just going to put glue just 1 dot in the middle so that I can slide something under it at the end if I need to. And put that in place, lining up these triangles down here. And now take your other number 4 of your next pattern and put glue on the whole entire thing. And just place that down, lining up the teardrop shape and the square shape. So that's a pretty big piece there. And now your other number 4 piece, and put glue on the whole entire thing, and line up the little teardrop shape up there at the top, and then make sure that it goes underneath the first piece that you put down on this layer. And then we can go ahead and put a little more glue under the first piece. Now let's take the next number 3 piece here of this pattern, and we're going to put glue kind of just in the middle and line up the triangles down there at the bottom. And then take your next number 3 piece of this pattern and put glue on the whole entire thing and line that up. And then take your number 3 piece of the other pattern and glue the whole thing down, just being sure to stick it underneath the first piece in this layer. So I just lined up my little teardrops up at the top. So the middle part is really starting to take shape, and again, it would have looked pretty cool if I took the time to put some ink on the edges of these pieces. So just take your number 2 piece of your first pattern, glue it down, number 2 piece of your next pattern, glue it down. And I'll just go ahead and show you the whole entire thing since the heart is a little bit more irregular than a plain shape like a circle or a square. And line up your teardrop. And then just finish it off by gluing down your final pieces, which are all number 1s. And then we will be ready to glue it behind the frame to finish it off. And then we can either put it on a card like I did, or put it on the top of a box, or put it on the front of a gift bag. Okay, so there's our heart, and here's our frame. Which side do I like better? I think this side has more contrast, so let's put our glue on the back side. Like so. And just lay it down flat and flip your heart over. And just center it and just make sure that it's not sticking out on any of the sides past the edge of the frame. And just press it down till it gets a good hold. And then you're ready to flip it over and check it out. Pretty cool. So again, if you add ink or some embossing, and I even stitched on every single piece with my sewing machine on this one, and then I've got this top frame piece here, so it looks a lot cooler when you take more time to embellish it, but you get the idea. Now next, let's do our final card here, our square, which is turned into a cute little house. So we've got our frame piece, which we can set aside, and I've got the background, which is just a square with little tiny squares on each corner. And we have all of our pieces laid out here, and they're going in order from 1 through 7. So this one has 7 pieces on each layer. Each pattern has 7 parts. So it's pretty much the same thing that we've been doing before. Let's start with the biggest piece, which in this case is number 7. And just pick any side to start on, doesn't matter. And glue it down. But I already forgot to leave the top part loose to go underneath it. So take your next pattern and glue that down right onto its little square there. And work your way around with all of your number 7s. This one still had its little square in there. Okay. Just glue that down and glue the final number 7 down, being sure to just slide it underneath the first piece there. So line it up and press it down, and then add a little glue to your first piece to put that in place. So you're just going to do the same thing going all the way up. Now I've got my number 6 piece, which I will put down. And this would definitely look cool if I inked the folded edges of these pieces, because it would just really separate the patterns and really like kind of show your eye exactly what's going on a little more. So if you have the time and the desire to ink the edges of your folded edges of your pieces, it's definitely worth it because it really looks cool. So I'm on my third number 6 piece here, and just gluing them all down. And here's the final number 6 piece, which I'll be sure to put underneath the first number 6. And then just add a little glue underneath this first guy to glue it down. So go ahead and do the same thing all the way around, going up with these last 5 pieces all the way up. Okay, so all my pieces are glued on. It's got a pretty cool effect going here. My papers are pretty crazy, and like before, you're just going to glue that behind your frame. So I noticed that on these pieces, the edges where I creased them are a little bit rough, and you can kind of see the white paper showing through in the center a little bit. So if you've got that issue, just grab some sandpaper and just give it a quick little swoosh, and you can even add some ink to the edges, which I did on this. And like on this pink paper, I used some pink ink, and here too, and then brown. It just finishes it off, adds a nice touch, and brings out the iris fold design. And on here, I also stitched on all these pieces, which is a really nice touch too. So that's that card all done. Alright, so thanks for watching, and I hope you find these pieces really easy to put together. I think they will be. And if you make any of these cards, I hope you share a picture with us on our Facebook wall or in our forum. So thanks for watching, I'll see you next time, and happy crafting!
Learn more by visiting www.svgcuts.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and watch all of our crafty videos on YouTube. It's a world of crafty content with you in the middle. SVGcuts.com, inspiring you to live creatively and beautifully.